Lord. Okay. For some reason, I'm going to make sure. Hey, everybody, will you go in and just put your name in the chat box for me? That would be awesome. I would love that. Hey, Kathy. So glad that you guys are here. Awesome. Okay. I want to go in and mute all real quick. And there we go. Okay. Everybody. Hi. Good morning. Hey, can you see us? Can you see us good? Are you just seeing us? Chat me through the chat box. Hey, yes. Hey, Ellen. I'm so glad to see you guys. It's great to see y'all. If you haven't met Kaeti Shurling, this is Katie.
Hello.
She is our registered dietitian here at TransFit. We are so grateful that you guys could just pop on, even if it's just for a little while, to join us for a quick lunch and learn, whether you're eating lunch or you are working or you're running errands. You can just listen to us chat for a little bit. Hopefully you'll get a little good nugget of something. I want us to be able to use the chat box. Katie's going to be cooking, demoing, talking, and I'm going to be looking, making sure you guys don't have any questions, and then I'll shoot the questions over to Katie, okay? So I first just want to open us up in just a quick moment of prayer. So if we'll just bow your heads, maybe you're getting ready to eat. At some point you will be, but Lord, thank you so much for allowing us the opportunity wherever we are to join together, to be able to learn, to be able to just give you thanks and praise, Lord. We thank you for this time. I thank you for Katie and her willingness to teach us how to eat healthy so that we can nourish our bodies and in turn really just nourish our minds and our spirits. And God, we just thank you and we praise you for this time. We want to offer it all up to you and just let everything we're doing in here give you honor and praise. Thank you for this time and for the women that are logging on and for the ones that are going to be joining us or just listening maybe at a different time. We thank you for these women, for our community, and we're just grateful that we get to celebrate and cap off our last little celebration here with a fun time where we can be together. In your name we pray. Amen. Okay, guys. Awesome. Okay, so we're going to get started. Katie, I'm going to let you take it away. And one more time, if you're just jumping in, I see some other people joining us. Will you guys just make sure that you will just message us through the chat box, say you can't see us or hear us well? Like, we want all that to be good. So, Katie, take it away.
Hi, I'm loving seeing all of y'all pop on, and I'm loving this fun celebration of TransFit's 5th birthday. So thank you, Caroline, for having me. And I hope, I don't have an island, so I've done this once before, and I kind of just set it all up in the corner behind me, so I'm going to try not to have my back to y'all. And I'll bring things up to the camera to get closer so you can really see. But I wanted y'all to have a big picture of how I cook in my kitchen, and you'll see that it's not, it's what I call Rachel Ray real life edition. So you may hear the dog barking in the background or the baby cry if she gets up from the nap, but that's what we're all doing anyways. We all have distractions, and I want to make sure that we all can not, sacrifice our food and our well-being and our nutrition just because we're all distracted and have a lot going on. So I tried to select some easy, simple recipes, or at least ones that you can make ahead, so that, one day you might have a little more time, and then so the rest of the week you can kind of zoom through because you've done all that prep work. So one of our principal ingredients today that we're going to use in both recipes is quinoa. And I'm going to try to kind of talk about some of the health benefits as I go through some of the ingredients, particularly the ones in blue. So if by the end I skipped over some of those health benefits, don't let me forget. I want to point them out because there's a lot of good ones, and you'll see that in addition to quinoa being one of the principal ingredients, that fiber is one of the nutrients we'll be talking about, because that's in a lot of the ingredients we're using today. So I guess I'll go ahead and get started. I did go ahead and, like Caroline mentioned, I made a big batch of quinoa. If you do it, the night before, and so the first recipe we're going to be doing is a breakfast quinoa dish. So it's kind of like you would do an oatmeal. It's cinnamon, banana, and peanut butter breakfast quinoa. So if you did make it the night before, like I tried to do a lot of prep, just zap it in the microwave for about 30 to 45 seconds, depending on your microwave. And as you can see, I'll try to bring it up. I've got my quinoa in the dish right here, just so it's warm, because that's going to really help the flavors mix. So I've got my quinoa. It's about a cup of quinoa once it's cooked. And I'm going to add vanilla. A teaspoon of vanilla extract. And some of these things, so cinnamon and vanilla, I would say you could probably even go lighter on than the recipe calls for, because they're pretty powerful. But if you really love that cinnamon, you really love that vanilla, it's not gonna, it's okay. So I'm just gonna add a half a teaspoon of vanilla to mine, just so it's not too overpowering. We can always add more.
Does cinnamon's one of those superfoods, right, Katie? What benefits does cinnamon have?
Great question. It's anti-inflammatory, so that really helps. It's kind of a broad statement, but it really helps keep everything in our body not inflamed, which really helps rid our body of disease and just keeps our muscles and bones and ligaments, all those things moving, so we can have a great workout at TransFit. Because as you notice, when we are kind of in a more inflamed state, I have a bad knee, so when my knee's inflamed, it just kind of affects, I'm not able to work out as well, then I'm not able to do things at home well, because I'm not exercising and moving that knee as well. So the same thing goes down to the cellular level. So cinnamon is a great thing to add to anything, sweet and non-sweet, just to kind of help the flavor. So I've added my vanilla. Before I spill this, I'm gonna that right behind me, and then I'm gonna add my cinnamon. I'm not adding all my cinnamon that it calls for. As you notice, it says divided. Again, just because you don't want to be overpowering, but also because we can add some on the top at the end. So now that I've got, I'll show y'all my vanilla and cinnamon in here. I'm gonna mix it, and again, it's warm, so it's gonna mix a little better, just kind of like an oatmeal. It's already smelling really good.
Why would this be better than oatmeal, Katie?
Well, it's just different. That's a great question. In fact, that was one of the swaps I was going to talk about, was you could swap out oats for quinoa a lot of times. You can use, like, sometimes, I don't know if you've ever used a recipe that calls for quinoa or oats in like a meatloaf, but it's just that starch, it's like grain kind of instead of the breadcrumbs that kind of holds everything together. I wouldn't say this is necessarily, there's positives to both, but I will say that quinoa has 5. So I count a cup of quinoa as a serving size, and most my fitness pal and stuff like that would agree. So 1 cup has 5 grams of fiber. I'm a little cheat sheet over there, so I didn't forget. 5 grams of fiber and 8 grams of protein. So you get a lot of protein and a lot of fiber in quinoa. So, and it's something you can make ahead of time. Oatmeal is a little harder to make ahead of time and reheat. So another benefit of quinoa. So after I've added my vanilla and my cinnamon, I'm going to go ahead and heat up my peanut butter, which while I'm heating this up, I want to talk about some of my favorite peanut butters. So just that just for 30 seconds, not 30 minutes. I think Caroline shared some of these. But these are my 2 favorite peanut butters right now. One, if you're a Jif person, you just can't quite convert to that gritty, natural peanut butter yet. This is a good one because it has no added sugar. Now, if you'll notice, I think the regular Jif, it doesn't have a ton, but this has no added sugar. And it's pretty good. It just doesn't have quite as much sweetness as you might be used to, but it's not, taste it, it's nothing crazy, it's not bad. If you do want kind of the more grainy, gritty, but also want the easy to use, these pouches are amazing. This is from Kroger, that Simple Truth brand. This is an almond butter with added chia, hemp, goji, and this is a new one for me, but lucuma. But it's easy to use. I can take it to my other work when I go, and I can just add it on some apple or some banana. And it's, like you said, you can squeeze out. So you can use either one of these peanut butters in this, I was about to say oatmeal, in this quinoa dish we're making this morning. So once you have your, you've got the quinoa with the cinnamon and the vanilla. I'm gonna cut up my banana. I put sliced or mashed. I'm fine with the slice, but some people want it mashed up in there so it all, is the same consistency. That is totally up to you. I'm just gonna make a few slices on top. It calls for the whole banana, but for sake of y'all's time, I'm not gonna cut the whole banana. But you can see, this is the fun part and the delicious part. When the peanut butter gets hot, it's a little more drizzly. And you can just drizzle it over the top. And
I'd like to lick that bowl.
I know, it is delicious. And then you can sprinkle more cinnamon on top. You could add, I've been adding pumpkin seeds to things recently. Pumpkin seeds, flax seeds. I like that extra crunch. So the more you can add, the more protein and the more healthy fats you're adding with those things too. So I'll add a little more cinnamon and show y'all what it looks like. And voila.
Katie, how many total grams of protein are in that breakfast?
Ooh.
I mean, that would be a really good lunch as well.
Yeah, true. In fact, I did something similar to that yesterday. I put it in a Yeti and it stayed hot. The Yeti cup.
So pretty much the quinoa plus the peanut butter.
The quinoa, yeah. So you got the 8 grams of protein, and then in the peanut butter, depending on the peanut butter you use, could be 5 to 6 grams, and how much peanut butter you use. So yeah, great dish without even adding meat. So I was going to say that too. I'm glad you brought that up. I know we have a lot of vegetarian and vegan clients at TransFit. So it's a great protein. Quinoa is a great protein option for our vegetarian and vegan clients. It's also gluten-free. So a lot of benefits there. And then I didn't mention this, but as you saw in the recipe, you could also add a little, it says almond milk. You can use any kind of milk that you want to add. If you wanted it a little more soupy, but it's fine as it is. And I just used water to boil the quinoa. So if you wanted to have it dairy-free, you could. And the banana actually has 3 grams of fiber in it as well. So I want to make sure I touched on all of those things. We talked about the benefits of the quinoa. The banana, obviously, you're going to get some potassium, which is good as an electrolyte for those muscles. And then we talked about the cinnamon benefits. So then you add nuts, flax seeds, anything else you want to add, and you're just adding to the health benefits.
And Katie, just as a registered dietitian, do you still recommend that people, we hear, and I get a lot of questions about this too, about intermittent fasting and what time should I eat breakfast? What's the best should I eat before my workout? What do you suggest right now?
Yeah. So I just finished telling Caroline I'm a big breakfast eater, and now that I'm expecting, I went from 2 breakfasts to 3 breakfasts a day. But I always tell my clients too, I could eat breakfast foods. I probably because I like the breakfast foods, but it's also just really good way to start your day. It sets the tone for your metabolism. So the more, I don't want to say the more you eat and you go out and get an all-star special. My clients know this from me. But you can eat almost the same amount of calories as an all-star special, maybe if you're getting a lot of exercise. And what it's doing is it's telling you, it's telling your body, I need to run this metabolism all day. I need to run a high metabolism because I just got a bunch of food that I need to burn off. And then that high metabolism is going to extend throughout the rest of the day. So it's also going to burn your lunch better. It's going to burn your dinner better. But then also on that note, it doesn't have to be breakfast food. So again, I said I love breakfast food, but some people are like in the morning, like I've had someone that said they like salad for breakfast. Eat a salad for breakfast. That's fine. My thing is within 2 hours of waking up is a good time to have your breakfast and have something with definitely with a little bit of protein in it. But that's also the time of day to have the bulk up a little more on your carbohydrates. Better in the morning than later. So a mixture of carbohydrates, protein, and then obviously some healthy fats. So you're getting all macronutrients there, but it doesn't have to be a big breakfast. You can have banana with a little bit of peanut butter on it.
I love this recipe because I feel like you could just do a small amount of banana. If you didn't like peanut butter, you could switch to almond butter. You could really make it. And we've got a couple of great questions about how did you cook your quinoa? And I think that is a great question. But what I love, I'll let you answer in just a minute, but I love to cook a bunch of quinoa on the stove at one time. I like to cook it on the stove just because I can watch it. And I like more of the consistency there. But I'll cook up 3 to 4 cups and then let it cool and then refrigerate it and even sometimes freeze it.
Yeah.
And then can add it to salad, dinner. I'm obsessed with quinoa cakes. So I love doing that. And then it's already ready. You can mix it in however you want to mix it. So I always like to, it's like one of those Sunday meal prep things that you could do. It's like, okay, make a big batch of quinoa, and to me it keeps longer than oatmeal.
Yeah, it certainly does. Yeah, to answer the question on how I cooked it, I did do it from, on the stove. As you get bigger batches, it does tend to, when I made my first batch, it did get a little mushy. So I don't know if any of y'all have that issue. Big key, and I know I used to skip this step and it's not worth it. You do want to rinse your quinoa. It says it on there, rinse your quinoa, it gets all that extra starches off. As you go up, quinoa is one of those that as you go up, like let's say the recipe calls for half a cup of, which it does, half a cup of quinoa to a cup of water on the stove. That doesn't necessarily mean, okay, if you go to 1 cup, it's 2 cups. I tend to go down a little bit on the water as I go up because it does over absorb that water and then it gets mushy. For the oatmeal, it's fine. In fact, I ended up using that because I wanted to show y'all 2 different kinds. It's fine if it's a little mushy, but if you're going to toss it with the salad, you don't want these clumps of mushy quinoa. So I ended up making a new batch for that, and it did a lot better. But smaller batches are going to sometimes, or I will just say with larger batches, don't be discouraged if it does get a little mushy. It can be used in different ways, and just know next time, okay, make sure you rinse it. And then make sure you don't add too much water, kind of scale down on the water. And then I was going to say, for people that are trying to go faster, there we go. Thank you.
I saw this. Yeah.
I wanted to bring this out.
Yeah, I've seen those, the little packets of either brown rice, quinoa already made, and just 3 kids, dog, and all the stuff like this with rice, cauliflower rice is so helpful. This is from Kroger, and whole grain brown rice. I just want to say though, I would pour this into a glass dish and put some glass on top. I don't like heating anything in plastic.
Yeah, that does scare me.
That allows some of those not good nutrients from the plastic, BPH, to get into your food. So never heat anything in plastic. If you've got like frozen vegetables are perfectly fine. Put them in a glass dish. Put a glass, glass bowl, glass plate on top and steam it. Same with this, 90 seconds.
Yeah.
So I'll carry this up, Katie, if you want to.
Yeah, show them.
This is a whole grain brown rice, and they also have like whole grain quinoa. This whole grain brown rice actually has protein in it. I mean, that's just amazing, easy, and so just a great option for on the go. I mean, some people say, I can't eat healthy, I don't have time. Well, thankfully, a lot of places are making it super easy for us. So that's awesome.
So you can even make that. I mean, that one doesn't have any. Sometimes you'll get those in there like a mixture.
I'm just going to show you all this one more time.
And then have some flavors. But
it smells better, even better than it looks. And it looks. I mean, how easy was that? That was really
easy. Yeah. I mean, and I always have those are staples that I buy every week. I always make sure I have a grain, and usually it's quinoa. Always buy bananas, and then the spices you kind of always have it on hand too. So it's a really easy one to do.
And Deborah had a great question about how much cinnamon does it take to achieve the anti-inflammatory benefits. That's a really great question.
Yeah.
I don't know that per se. I like to, with everything, start off with a teaspoon. And then if it's okay on your stomach, then you could increase it. But I'm going to look that up and I'll get back to you guys. I'll put that in our email.
Yeah, don't be doing that cinnamon challenge. Wasn't that a thing? Don't do it unsafe levels. But I think as long as with anything, it can go the opposite way too, but if you're trying to get those anti-inflammatory effects, as long as you're adding, a teaspoon of something once a day, like maybe you're adding it in your tea, maybe you're adding it in your oatmeal in the morning, but consistently adding it, that's going to help you achieve those things. Not like you said, maybe not 1 teaspoon every 6 months isn't going to do the trick, but it's also not going to hurt you. So I think consistently adding it is a good way, just like I know Caroline's done a lot of the health benefits on turmeric and stuff before. Just consistently adding a little bit to your meals is not going to hurt, and it certainly can help. So great question. Awesome. Do you want me to go into the? I want to jump over anyone's questions. So I will go into what we can use our quinoa for lunch or dinner, or those people that like to have their salads for breakfast. So
Who's that? If you're a salad for breakfast person, I need to know who you are.
I know.
Ellen, is that you? No, yeah. I'm a huge salad person, but I guess
I'll
we
blend
can
my
say
salad in the morning.
spinach in our smoothie counts as salad. Maybe we could be there. So okay.
All right, so arugula salad with quinoa, apricot, and avocado. And Caroline and I were just talking about all the health benefits of arugula. It is one of my favorite. In fact, I'll be honest, and salads are not like, I love a good salad. I love it if someone else makes it for me, but that's not that's not my go-to lunch every day. And a lot of it is probably because I haven't found a lot of good greens that I just love. So a lot of times I blend them up in my smoothie, or I love a cooked green, but like salads sometimes aren't mine. So, but arugula changed the story for me. So I think it has a lot of good flavor. It's easy to eat. I think that's what I was noticing when I was getting too big of a spinach leaf. It was just like not easy to eat, and it was not very pretty. So if I was eating with anyone, it wasn't a good idea. But the spinach is, the arugula is easy to eat, great flavor. I've done it as simple as just toss arugula with some olive oil and a little squeeze of lemon or a little red wine vinegar, and good to go. But of course, the more stuff you add to it, the more health benefits you're adding and the more flavor. So if I can add more, I do. And this recipe was another way I could use the quinoa and also the arugula. So I'm going to bring these over now that I have a little more room. Now this is just a 2 portion, but if you were making it for your family or you're having friends over, you can do more. But that's why it doesn't look like I have a ton in here. But this is my mixing bowl, and then I'll show you kind of what it would look like one serving in your everyday bowl. So I've got my arugula. And I'm going to not follow the directions as probably in order as to what y'all are reading, but don't feel like you've missed a step or anything. I'm just doing it because it's going to be prettier the way I do it. I'm scared if I add all the things in the order it added, it's still going to taste great and it's still going to taste the same, but it's just not going to be as pretty, and I want to give y'all a little better display. So I've got first I'm going to make the dressing, and that was one thing Caroline and I talked about before deciding to do this, was how important and I shouldn't say important, but how easy it is to make your own dressings. But also how important, because I think a lot of times when we pick dressings up off the shelves, we don't know what all is in it. There are some great pre-made dressings, don't get me wrong. And I have a recommendation of some of those too, but this is, as long as it's stuff you kind of always have on hand, which I typically have a lot of these spices and olive oil and lemon on hand, make it yourself, and it can be saved also. So, and another thing, I always save these little containers. This was an old almond butter container. I'll save a dressing container if I have it. But it's just easy. I have an emulsion blender. Yeah, I always say it wrong. And that makes a really good dressing. But again, if that's going to stop you, if getting all the equipment out is going to stop you from making your own dressing, let's make it as easy for you as possible. So we have a little bit of, I've got my lemon zest right here. And this is not going to be maybe I'm making a little mess probably in doing this, but the point is to have it taste good. The mess doesn't matter. So I've got my lemon zest and my lemon juice. Now, talking about having equipment out, I'm trying to make it as little as possible, but I do love my microplane. I use this for if you're putting fresh ginger in something, and it's so easy to use and easy just to throw in the dishwasher and clean. So I use that to do my zest. And then I have the big lemon or citrus juicer, and that's really helpful when I'm doing a lot or making lemonade or cocktails or something. But if you just have half a lemon, I just needed a tablespoon plus 2 teaspoons of fresh lemon juice, I just use this, and this is so handy and an easy thing I use all the time as well. So I've got my lemon zest and my lemon juice. Then I want a tablespoon of honey, which I've got a tablespoon right here, but I'm going to use this as my opportunity to tell y'all, measuring out, another thing I tell my clients all the time, is huge, especially if you're trying to lose weight, because it's amazing how, especially if an ingredient isn't necessarily bad for you, or you don't think of it as a bad food. I hate to label foods like that, but that we just added olive oil. Now I'm thinking of olive oil specifically. Like, yes, that's a great thing to roast your vegetables in, but when you add, you know, a 4th cup of olive oil, maybe not be the best. So measuring out everything from your spices to your salt, your pepper, your honey is really key, unless you start making this oatmeal every morning and you know how much peanut butter it looks like in your small little glass dish. You don't have to measure it out every time. You know it's okay, a 4th of this dish or whatever it is. But for things that you're not doing all the time, do measure, because it can, if it is a spice, it could affect the taste of your dish. But it also, if it's something that maybe is a little more higher in calories, maybe it's healthy fats, but it's still adding, and it's maybe inhibiting some of your weight loss if you're trying to do that. So honey, I'm gonna do, it's a tablespoon. Now, as we all know, honey is gonna stick to the sides a little bit. So if you do like your dressing a little sweeter, make sure that you do maybe go a little over your tablespoon, knowing that you're not gonna get it all out. But for me, I kind of like a more citrus dressing, so I'm probably just gonna do a tablespoon, and if I don't get all of it out, it'll be okay. I can always add a little more honey later.
And y'all, I was recently at Trader Joe's, and they have what's called Manuka Honey, which is it's more high-end honey, but they say it has amazing health benefits. And if you're just putting in, you know, a teaspoon of honey in something every now and then, like, I don't want people to be scared of honey, especially if it's, you know, local honey, or what they're calling this Manuka honey, which is really, really good for your body. Helps fight infection, helps fight disease, can strengthen your immune system. So I think the big key here is that you measure, like Katie said. I mean, it's not bad. Like, none of these things are bad, but we just have to use moderation.
Right.
But I will say that Trader Joe's did have this Manuka honey that was at a really reasonable price. That's a really great honey for your body. So
yeah, I'm gonna have to try that. Okay, and then I think the next thing is thyme. I actually have this in my backyard, so it's fun to use this. Dumping that in, and my olive oil.
So Katie, I missed this a minute ago.
Oh.
How much vinegar did you put in?
I haven't put in any vinegar.
Okay.
I just did. So this is a lemon vinaigrette. Great question. Yes.
Okay.
But you could make a dressing that had vinegar in place of the lemon, or you can add both. Depends on how acidic you like your dressing. And then salt and pepper. It doesn't say. I think it says to taste. But again, we don't want to over salt, especially if we're trying to watch our heart health, which we all should be. And so I'm gonna do, this is a half teaspoon. I'm not even gonna fill this with salt. I'm just using it kind of as my guide.
What I love about this too is we'll have this dressing, and you can really use it all week.
Yeah, and that's another thing. And I'll say this. I'll remind y'all again when we're dressing the salad, but don't pour it all in at once. Even this is, I think, actually what it calls for two, but it's, well, no, this, I think I overdid the dressing. No, I wanted y'all to have some to save, but don't over dress it at first, because it's always going to spread more than you think. For the pepper, this one tends to explode, so I'm just going to kind of use this.
Pepper from Sam's.
Yeah, I use a lot. Okay, so putting it in my little almond butter container.
It's such a great idea to save the almond butter container.
Well, I do it for that, and then also because sometimes they don't end up back from mixed work after, so I don't like to sit them on my nice containers.
So there's no vinegar in there.
No vinegar in here.
It's more of a citrus.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you could do the same thing, like if you didn't,
Yeah.
if you didn't want to add,
It's emulsified just by really shaking it up.
yeah. You could just add a squeeze of lemon and some olive oil on your dressing. You didn't want to add all these spices or take the time to make this dressing. So, and it's still good. You just kind of do it to your taste. So again, I'm kind of going out of order, but I did want to go ahead and toss the quinoa and arugula in together. I'd already measured this out. So, as you can see, they're both in there together. And then with some of my dressing.
While she's tossing that, yeah. I was just looking up and researching for you guys the benefits of arugula. I feel like most of us know the benefits of spinach, high in calcium, vitamin C, spinach, Popeye, you just think of that. But when you think about arugula, you think spicy, peppery. But arugula has some of the biggest health benefits. So I want you to try it. And I really think adding it, I love how she's doing a citrus vinaigrette, because the pepperiness of the arugula with the citrus vinaigrette versus a vinegar vinaigrette would be, that really complements the arugula. But arugula is one of the highest cancer fighting foods. Okay, so maybe it's that pepper that gives a little kick to whatever in there. Super high in calcium, high in potassium, folate, so good, vitamin C, vitamin K, and vitamin A. So really, really good. Now, I wouldn't add arugula into my smoothie, but I do, it's just one of those things I typically don't buy. So when Katie mentioned that in the, that she was thinking about this salad, I was like, oh, that's great. That really is going to maybe push some of us to go out of our comfort zone a little bit. And I know at most grocery stores you can buy it normally. So.
Yeah, and to me it saves better. Like sometimes my spinach, again, I buy spinach every week for my smoothies, but and arugula and those, but it saves for longer. I don't know if there's something that doesn't do that mushy stuff as soon. Okay, so I also already added my chickpeas. I'm just gonna toss them in, and see, even I do it. I overdress the salad, so I could have gone with a little less. Maybe once I add all my other toppings,
add some more arugula.
That's true. You can add more arugula, more of those health benefits.
More greens.
And I did want to point out that chickpeas have 7. So for a half a cup, which is a serving, they have 7 grams of protein and 6 grams of fiber. So a lot of good other health benefits to those chickpeas, and another good idea for our vegetarian and vegan clients. So that I did all this first because then I just wanted to add the pretty stuff on top. So now we've got the quinoa, the chickpeas, and the arugula. Then we can add our dried apricots, which have antioxidants, and they also have, for a fourth a cup, they have 4 grams of fiber.
Oh,
I'm gonna add, maybe I should do all this at once so then I can bring it over to y'all. We've got the dried apricots, which you can find like here, the raisins, and anything like raisins, craisins, apricots. If you can, try to select the ones that don't have the added sugar, because they're gonna have a little more preserved sugar, and that's what helps them stay fresh, or in the form of that dried state. But if you can get the ones without added sugar, that would be great. So I've got my apricots. I toasted my slivered almonds. You don't need any oil to do that because I did it in a frying pan.
How'd you do that?
I just added the slivered almonds, which are already slivered. I purchased them this way. Here, I'll show you. But you don't have to add any oil because the oil is coming from the nuts. It's the healthy fat. So, but you can. It's easy to overcook them. So
you did it on a saute pan.
Yeah, saute pan.
So when you're toasting regular nuts, because I love to toast a pecan or something like that, you don't even need to spray the pan.
The natural oils will, but don't put it on like the highest of high heat. Watch it. It's not something you can walk away from, but you'll smell it too when you walk away and it starts to burn. You'll know, but it can even burn a little bit and still have that good flavor. But for me, I don't love like a slivered almond plain, but when I toasted it, I love the flavor. So that's just me. But you can add them without toasting too. But know that even though they're toasted, doesn't mean that I've added any calories or any fat anyway. It's just the natural fat kind of came out. And so we've got those, and then while I'm chopping chives, there was something you said you wanted to tell them too, or did you already touch on it?
I can't remember. It was about arugula.
That's right. Okay.
I'm just trying to get people to shake it up a little bit. Okay.
I love
arugula instead of spinach. It's like all I can do to get my kids to eat anything but iceberg lettuce. Yeah. But I'm happy they're eating something green. So my goal is going to be to buy some more arugula for sure, especially now that I read all of the great properties it has. And I love that this salad does not have any meat in it, and it's still so high in protein. I mean, this is a meal right here. Granted, I, especially after my workout that we just did, might just take this big old bowl and just kind of eat this whole thing. But Katie is now adding in an avocado. So I just don't want us to be afraid. Like, she has got the nuts in the salad, the healthy fats. Our bodies need these healthy fats. We need healthy fats for our brains. I love what, again, Katie said at the beginning when she said, measure your food. It's so important. You know, do you have to eat the entire avocado? No. Do you have to get the jumbo avocado? Well, if you do, only eat the fourth of it. Okay. So it's like, be mindful with your portions, but the avocado adds such a rich flavor to the salad, adds that great healthy fat, so many great properties in the avocados. So just making sure, don't be afraid of those healthy fats.
So there's the finished product. And I don't know, while Carolina was talking, I did add those chives, and I don't know if you can smell them, but it's just a fun, it's like one of those things you could leave out in a salad, it's still gonna taste good, but it kind of adds a fun dimension to it too. So don't be afraid to add those extra fresh herbs. If you have any in your backyard, even better. But because there's been a lot of times I'm like, oh, I don't want to buy that. It's like kind of expensive, and I really only needed one leaf of basil or whatever. But it really has added a fun flavor. So kind of splurge every now and then. Plus, they've actually kind of come down in cost. And another thing I'll add, this was not planned, but
Katie's kitchen.
Yeah, it's kind of okay. Here we go. If you do only need one leaf of basil and you don't want to buy all those, I don't know if this is basil or sometimes I get cilantro, but you can get the dried, they're still like half fresh comb. They do go bad a little bit, you know, it's not gonna, the shelf life isn't as long as your dried spices, but it's gonna add that like fresh flavor. But it might last, you know, a month instead of a week or less.
I definitely think adding fresh herbs and spices into your foods is a great way to season things without salt.
Yeah.
If, you know, as we're in this month of February, we're talking so much about heart health. You know, reducing your sodium is such a great way to protect your heart. Of course, getting in cardiovascular exercise, but just, I love what Katie said about rinsing your quinoa, rinsing your chickpeas, rinse your chicken, rinse these things. So that just gets off any extra sodium, any preservatives from packaging, which ends up, you know, just it just adds up. And if you think about it, just the little things that we did, the quinoa, I mean, just rinsing those few things can really help. And then toasting the almonds instead of salting them brings out a great flavor without the extra sodium. And I just know my fingers get all swollen and I blow up my face when I have too much salt, especially when we've gone out to eat. We don't know what they've salted things with. So that's why I love to make a big old salad like this. Maybe you don't dress the whole thing. Maybe you could make it in the bowl and then you could take out what you wanted, dress it, and then you could put the rest of this in the refrigerator for the next day.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think all those are great tips.
Yeah. So guys, I wanted Katie just for a quick minute as we wrap up, just to talk about any healthy swaps, because I think that's so important. If anybody has any last minute questions, we put those on the chat box. We're going to wrap it up in just a few minutes, talking about quick healthy swaps. And we're also going to just email you out if you didn't get these recipes. Now that you've seen it and you know, like, I want to get me some chats and some apricots. But let us know. We'll re-email you these recipes. Send us a picture of you if you've made it. We'd love that. Please do that. That would be so great. And so we'd love that. And then we'll send you out these recipes. We'll send you out a sheet about healthy swaps of different things. But Katie, any swaps you can think of? Say you're using this.
Yeah. The dressing was my big one. One that I always talk about, it's not something we use today, but anytime you're using like Greek yogurt, trying to use anytime you're using sour cream, try to use Greek yogurt instead. That is something you want to be a little careful about though, depending on how you're using it. Sometimes you still need a little bit of that fat. So if it calls for like a light sour cream, then you might be able to go with the fat-free Greek yogurt. But if it needs some of that fat, sometimes you do have to get like a 2% or Greek yogurt, just to kind of help with whatever it is. Sometimes it needs that. The dressing, another thing I like to do and I've done this for Winnie, my daughter as well, but instead of ice cubes in my water, just to get a few more benefits of and flavor, I've done frozen fruit as my ice cubes. And then as it melts, in fact, I probably have some in the fridge. I did some frozen strawberries I had, and I just added those as my ice cubes, and then I'm like getting little strawberry seeds as I sip. So I like that. I'm also the one that likes like high cold orange juice and because it's real orange juice and lemonade. But so that's another one. I felt like I had one more that has been a recent find of mine, but what was it?
I love to add in, instead of regular potatoes, like I made a chicken pot pie last night for my kids, and it called for, we just did a very light crust on the bottom, but instead of potatoes, we use sweet potatoes. So I try to substitute sweet potatoes for almost anything, and that's one of my go-to breakfasts is I roast a bunch of sweet potatoes, a half a sweet potato with even a little quinoa and a little almond butter, warmed up in the morning, and it just will keep you full. It's one of those slow release carbohydrates. That's a good carbohydrate, full of vitamin A, vitamin C, sweet potatoes. So just try to chop that out. Chopped in salad, roasted sweet potato with my salad. It's just pure goodness. So that's one of my favorite foods. So I swap it in and just fun anything.
Yeah. And just any, like even actually going back to today and thinking about other proteins, like let's say you don't like chickpeas, black beans, any other kind of beans would be a good protein source. Or if you're like, I got this idea from a friend. I don't know how to think of it myself, but it just sometimes you see different people do different things. But her daughter loves quesadillas, and she's like, how do I get my protein in there? She just put like a thin layer of like mashed black beans on there. So her daughter couldn't see, she's 2 like mine. So that anything you see, you're probably not gonna like it. But it's just a way to add some protein in there. So if you want to make it, that's another go-to lunch of mine. It sounds so unhealthy, but you can make a quesadilla healthy. If you do like a whole wheat wrap or a corn tortilla over a flour tortilla, do a thin layer of beans, a little bit of cheese, chop up some vegetables in there. It's another good, easy. It's like if I have a bunch of leftover of those things, sometimes I keep tortillas on hand so that I can do something.
That was our go-to, healthier. I could like sneak some things in for my kids.
Yes.
Over COVID, it was we're having quesadillas again. Yes. You can't really see what's in it.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I love those swaps. If anybody has any other questions, we'd love to answer them. But we're just thankful to see you guys.
Yes.
It's been a fun lunch and learn. And again, send us. We're hoping to do a lunch and learn back in the studio soon, but at least we get to see all of you here and be with you. But send us pictures if you make a salad that's maybe even close, or the quinoa bowl. Or maybe you're using quinoa in another way with your eggs or something like that. We'd love to hear about it. So thank you guys for joining us.
Y'all.
And for just being here with us, celebrating Transfit's 5th birthday and 5 points, 11 years total that when I started it out of my home, but just so thankful and grateful for each one of you. So thanks for joining us. And again, if you need to reach out to Kaeti specifically about any nutrition needs, maybe you want to meet with her one-on-one, you can email transfitathens@gmail.com and I will forward you on to her, or you can just message her also via Instagram. I know she has tons of great tips on her Instagram page and all that good stuff, but she'd love to meet with you, half hour, 1 hour, just if you have questions, anything like that. So she's amazing. So thank you guys.
Thank y'all. Bye.
Have a great weekend. It's good to see you too, Ellen. See y'all later. Bye. Bye, Trace. Bye, Tina. Bye, Bone Dry friends. Kathy, Sarah. See y'all.